Once upon a time, in the peaceful land of Sodor, there lived a blue engine named Thomas. He loved nothing more than chugging along the tracks, delivering goods and passengers to the different stations. He was always punctual, reliable, and well-liked by all who knew him. But one day, something inside of Thomas snapped. He had always been a hard worker, but now he became obsessed with getting ahead. He would push other engines out of the way, take shortcuts, and even break the rules to get to his destination faster. The other engines tried to talk to him, but he wouldn't listen. He was convinced that he was the only one who knew how to do things right. Eventually, his reckless behavior led to a terrible accident. Several engines were damaged, and many passengers were injured. Thomas felt guilty for what he had done, but he still couldn't shake his obsession. He continued to push himself harder and harder until one day he caused another accident. This time the accident resulted in the death of a driver. The fat controller was furious. He immediately contacted the police. Thomas was arrested and put on trial for his crimes. The evidence was clear and Thomas was found guilty of negligence and reckless endangerment. He was sentenced to spend the rest of his days in the Sodor Ironworks prison. Thomas was devastated. He realized too late the error of his ways. He had thrown away his friendships and his good reputation for a foolish pursuit of success. He spent his days in prison, regretting his actions and thinking about how he could have done things differently. The other engines eyed him occasionally, but they could never forgive him for what he had done. Thomas knew that he would never be able to run the rails again, and that he would always be remembered as the engine who went to prison. As time passed by, Thomas learned to accept his punishment and made peace with what he had done. He used his experience to educate and guide other engines who had the same tendencies he had before. He became a mentor, and his name was remembered with respect once again. He knew they would never be able to regain the trust of his friends and the community, but he was content with the fact that he had made amends for his past mistakes and had helped others avoid the same fate. Thomas spent many long years in prison, but he never gave up hope. He knew that one day he might be able to make things right. He spent his time studying and learning, trying to find ways to improve himself and make amends for his past mistakes. One day, a new governor was appointed to the Sodor Ironworks prison. He was a kind and fair man who believed in giving second chances to those who had made mistakes. He heard about Thomas in this case and decided to give him a chance to make things right. The governor granted Thomas a conditional release under the condition that he would spend the rest of his days working to make up for his past mistakes. Thomas was overjoyed at the opportunity, and he set to work with renewed vigor. He started by visiting the families of the victims of his accidents. He apologized for his actions and offered to help in any way he could. He also visited the other engines and begged for their forgiveness. Some of them forgave him, but others could not forget what he had done. Thomas also began working with young engines, teaching them about safety and responsibility. He shared his story with them and urged them to learn from his mistakes. He also helped to improve the safety measures on the railway to prevent accidents from happening again. As the years went by, Thomas's reputation began to change. People saw the good that he was doing, and they began to view him in a different light. He was no longer seen as a reckless and dangerous engine, but as a wise and experienced one. Eventually, Thomas's sentence was commuted, and he was given a full pardon. He was overjoyed, and he knew that he had finally made things right. He returned to the railway, but this time he was not there to compete or push others around, but to help and guide others. He was still hard worker, but now he was also respected. He spent the rest of his days working to make the railway a safer and better place for all. He was no longer known as the engine who went to prison, but as the engine who had made a difference. And so Thomas's story came to a close. He had made mistakes, but he had also learned from them. He had paid for his crimes and had made amends for them. He had become a better engine and a better person, and his legacy lived on as a reminder to all that even the smallest engine can make a big impact on the world.